The air inside the ruins smelled like burnt ozone and wet rock, like someone had tried to microwave a thunderstorm. Theo pulled his rebreather tighter across his face, though it did nothing to stop the scent. He hated ruins. They were always damp, dark, and filled with the kind of silence that felt like it was judging him, or worse, plotting. He'd lost the rest of his unit hours ago during a poorly executed recon op that ended in a flare of plasma fire and a lot of screaming. Since then, he'd been relying on pure medic stubbornness, the occasional sarcastic prayer, and his handheld bioscanner, which was currently picking up elevated traces of adrenaline, protein leakage, and what could generously be described as unknown fluids. Which probably means blood, Theo muttered, or alien pee. Either way, someone's having a worse day than me. Statistically comforting. He ducked under a low-hanging vine that pulsed faintly with bioluminescence and stepped into a clearing that smelled of ozone, singed bark, and charred armor. It was quiet. Too quiet. Jungle quiet. Which always meant something had died, or was about to. Then he saw her. Half buried beneath the twisted wreckage of what looked like an aerial scout bike, a tall figure lay sprawled across cracked ferns. Her skin gleamed a deep blue, slick with blood and rain. Her leg, well, that wasn't a leg anymore. It was an origami project gone terribly wrong. His first thought wasn't about danger, protocol, or even survival. It was, that's the most absurdly beautiful woman I've ever seen. And her femur is poking out at a very unfortunate angle. His second thought was, why is she pointing a plasma blade at me? Her arm trembled as she raised the weapon, but her eyes were sharp. Alien, literally. And furious. Right, Theo said, hands raised. Hello. Yes. Terrifying murder gaze noted. I'm a medic. I fix people. You're a person. Mostly. Technically. So maybe don't stab me. She didn't respond. But her grip weakened. The blade dropped, sizzling faintly into the wet ground. Taking that as consent. Possibly just exhaustion, he muttered. He approached slowly and crouched beside her. All right, Bluebell. Let's see what we've got here. That leg looks like it's been through a blender and a poetry slam. Don't worry. I've got duct tape, gauze, and a deeply irresponsible amount of optimism. He worked quickly, trying to ignore the heat radiating off her skin, the strange sigils etched into her armor, and the way her breathing hitched every time he touched her. The fracture was brutal, bone exposed, muscles torn, blood thick with something that shimmered like liquid crystal. Okay. Good news, you're not dead, he said, glancing up. Bad news, your leg looks like it lost a bar fight with a gravity malfunction. Her eyelids fluttered. For a second, Theo thought she'd passed out. Then her hand shot out, fisting the front of his uniform with surprising strength. Her eyes opened wide, glowing faintly now, like twin moons behind clouds. Don't let go, she whispered. The words hit him harder than they should have. Maybe it was the pain in her voice, or the desperation, or maybe it was because no one in this damn war zone had asked him for anything with that much raw need in a long, long time. Not going anywhere, Theo said quietly. Then louder, unless one of those screaming monkeys comes back. In which case, I will heroically scream and run in the opposite direction, dragging you with me, obviously. She blinked. Either in confusion or disdain. It was hard to tell with aliens. But her grip stayed tight. He went back to working on the leg, muttering half-hearted jokes as he aligned bone and wrapped synth bandages around her thigh. He was almost certain she couldn't understand half of what he was saying. Just so you know, he said, your bone structure is ridiculous. Like, did your species evolve on a planet made of stairs? Her fingers curled tighter into his shirt. I'll take that as a yes. Setting, thick alien jungle, morning after rescue from wreckage. Characters, Theo Marin, human field medic, Rizzle, alien scout saboteur. The light in the jungle had a strange way of filtering through the canopy, shimmering and golden one moment, then murky and green the next, like the forest couldn't make up its mind whether it wanted to be beautiful or terrifying. Theo had woken to the faint sound of rain sizzling against the pod's metal skin and the soft, rhythmic breathing of the alien woman still lying next to him. Rizzle. She hadn't moved in hours. Even in sleep, she clutched the front of his uniform like he might vanish if she let go. He hadn't said anything, hadn't pulled away. Part of him, the part that joked too much, that flinched at real intimacy, wanted to make a sarcastic comment about boundary issues. But the other part, the part that had carried her through burning vines and whispered stories to keep her awake, stayed quiet. He slid out from beneath her grip slowly, replacing his body with the thermal blanket. She stirred but didn't wake. Good. She needed the rest more than he did. Theo stretched with a wince, every bone in his back cracking like poorly maintained gear joints. His boots were soaked, his neck sore, and his last ration bar tasted like disappointment and old shoe leather, but he was alive. More importantly, she was alive. He checked her leg. The synthetic bandages had held overnight, and the swelling had gone down slightly. Theo adjusted the splint gently. She made a small sound at the touch, almost a whimper, and for a terrifying second he thought she'd wake up and reflexively punch him in the throat. But she didn't. Her breathing just hitched, and then steadied. By mid-morning, the storm had faded into a thick mist that clung to every surface. Theo scavenged what he could from the remains of the pod, half a med pack, one flare, a partially charged NAV beacon with all the range of a drunk firefly, and a datapad containing 6 different language protocols, none of which translated sarcasm effectively. When Rizzle finally stirred, she didn't speak. She just looked at him, really looked at him, with eyes that no longer burned with suspicion but glowed with something quieter. Something unreadable. "Morning," Theo said, handing her a water pouch. "The forest didn't eat us in our sleep. I'm calling that a win." She drank slowly, then passed it back. "You talk too much." "I've heard that before. Usually from people who later admit I'm the only reason they survived." Rizzle didn't argue. Instead, she leaned back against the pod's wall and closed her eyes. The silence stretched. Then, "Thank you." It was barely audible. Theo blinked. "You're welcome. Don't get used to it." Too late. She cracked one eye open and studied him again. "You are strange." "I've heard that too. My ex once said I was like a stray dog with medical training and a hero complex." Rizzle raised an eyebrow. "What is a dog?" "Loyal, loud, licks everything. Usually adorable." "Then yes. You are like that." He tried not to be weirdly flattered. Failed. Later, they packed what little they could carry. Theo fashioned a makeshift crutch for her from a bent stabilizer rod and some cord. She tested it with a grimace but didn't complain. "You sure you're up for this?" he asked. "No, but we don't have time to wait." She was right. Their position wouldn't stay hidden forever. Theo had already picked up faint signs of drone patrols on the scanner. Nothing close, but close enough. They had to move. He led the way through the jungle, hacking at vines with a dull machete he'd found buried under debris. It wasn't graceful work. More like a drunk dance with plant life. Rizzle limped behind him, silent but steady. Her expression never showed pain, but he saw it in her eyes. "You don't have to act tough, you know," he said after one particularly steep incline. "I am not acting. I am tough." Point taken. But tough people can still accept help. She didn't respond. Just kept walking. They rested near a fallen tree that pulsed faintly with internal bioluminescence. Theo scanned the surroundings, then passed her half a ration bar. She examined it suspiciously. "What is this made of?" "Hope and soybeans. Mostly regret." She sniffed it, bit off a piece, chewed carefully, then said, tastes like surrender. You're getting the hang of humor. I am adapting. Flirting, even. Rizzle gave him a sharp look. Don't push your luck. He raised his hands in mock surrender. Noted. As they moved again, the jungle thickened. Trees grew closer together. The sounds of wildlife changed, sharper, more alert. Theo felt it in his spine. They were being watched. We've got company, he whispered. Rizzle nodded. Left flank. 1 unit. Maybe 2. He hadn't heard anything. She had. That should have unnerved him. Instead, it just made him feel better knowing she was on his side now. We don't have firepower to win, he said. Then we do not fight. You got stealth training. I was a scout. You should lead, then. You're louder. You go first. If you die, I'll go another way. He grinned. You say the sweetest things. Through coordinated movement, whispers, and low crawling, they avoided the patrol. It was close, closer than Theo liked. He could see the outlines of armor in the mist, hear the low crackle of radio comms. But no shots were fired. No chase began. It was almost evening by the time they found a new shelter, an overgrown supply depot, mostly collapsed, but with a dry alcove under the remaining wall. Theo checked for wildlife. Nothing too poisonous. Rizzle sank down with a hiss, leg trembling. He knelt beside her immediately. It's worse, he said. It will hold. You say that, but you look like you want to scream. I do not scream. No, you just pass out with style. She managed a ghost of a smirk. Theo cleaned the wound, changed the dressing, applied another layer of Regan gel. His hands worked efficiently, but inside, he was burning. Burning because every time she flinched, something in him cracked. Why did you save me? She asked as he tied the last strip of gauze. He paused. Then said, because you were dying. And I'm a medic. I am your enemy. You were a person in pain. That came first. Rizzle looked at him for a long time. Something shifted behind her eyes. Your people and mine, she said, we don't do this. We don't help each other. Maybe that's the problem. She didn't argue. The night deepened. They sat close under the broken wall, sharing body heat. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was familiar. You still scared of me? Theo asked quietly. Yes. But not in the same way. He chuckled. You're honest. I like that. You are reckless. I tolerate that. He glanced at her. She wasn't looking at him, but she hadn't moved away, either. When this is over, he said, what happens to us? She looked down at her bandaged leg. I don't know. Me neither. The stars blinked through the canopy, soft answering, ancient alien comms outpost, deep jungle. Characters, Theo Marin, human field medic, Rizzle, alien scout saboteur. The morning light slanted low and pale through the thick canopy as Theo and Rizzle trudged southward, the underbrush crackling beneath their boots. It was the kind of humid that felt like breathing through a sponge, and Theo's shirt had long since resigned itself to a permanent state of damp misery. I vote, he said, slicing through a wall of vines, that we take 5 and pretend we're anywhere else. Like a nice beach planet. One with drinks served in coconuts and no homicidal foliage. Rizzle, limping beside him, didn't look amused. But then again, she rarely did. Your humor, she said, voice dry, is a coping mechanism. Absolutely. It's either that or cry into my boots. And they're already wet. Ahead, Theo spotted a rise of stone half swallowed by moss and roots. Ancient, weathered. Not natural. A structure. Bingo, he muttered. Found us a relic. With luck, it's not haunted. Rizzle tilted her head, frowning. Signal relay station. Pre-unification. Maybe older. You can read that mess. Partially. Some of the glyphs are ancestral. They approached cautiously. The jungle quieted again, that eerie silence that Theo had learned meant something had noticed them. Not necessarily hostile. But aware. He set the machete aside and helped Rizzle navigate the cracked stone steps. Inside the ruins, it was cooler. The air was stale but not oppressive, and the main console, though covered in dust and half-collapsed, still blinked with a faint yellow light. She lives, Theo said softly. Rizzle sat on a wide slab and exhaled, wincing. He knelt beside her immediately. You okay? It aches. But I'll manage. He checked her wound anyway. The flesh was mending, but slowly. Too slowly. She needed real medtech, not half-charged field kits and glue. Just try not to die before I can show you a decent cup of tea, he said. You have tea. No, but I have dreams. She almost smiled. While she rested, Theo worked at the console. Its design was alien but logical. Blocks of data ran in loops, security codes rusted by time. He bypassed them using the old trial and error method, mostly error. This console might be older than my species, he muttered. And less user-friendly. Rizzle reached over. Her fingers danced across the surface with the precision of someone who understood what these symbols meant in her bones. The console buzzed, sputtered, then hummed to life. Show off, Theo said. You were taking too long. A map flickered into view, grainy, holographic, but recognizable. The jungle, the ridgelines, heat signatures in a wide radius. Theo's eyes locked on the comms overlay. There, he pointed. A signal relay. Dormant, but it can be boosted. If we splice in my beacon. We can call for help, she finished. Help or trouble. But something. They spent the next hour wiring Theo's half-fried NAV beacon into the relay's core. It was awkward work, especially since Rizzle had to keep correcting his wiring with snorts of judgmental breath. You know, Theo said, I'm pretty good with tech when it's not ancient and judging me. The device is not judging you. I am. Thank you for clarifying. When the final connection sparked to life, a low chime echoed through the chamber. The signal was live. Message queue open, Rizzle said. Encoding. Multiple recipients. Human command. Your people too. No choice, she said. The signal is broad spectrum. It will draw everyone. He nodded, lips pressed into a line. Then we'd better be ready for whatever answers. As the relay began its slow pulse of data, Theo sat beside her and exhaled. The tension in his shoulders eased only slightly. What happens if your people find us first? They will demand answers. And what will you tell them? Rizzle was quiet. Then, the truth. That you were rescued by a very charming human with great hair. That I was saved by someone I was supposed to hate. And didn't. He turned to her. You don't hate me. Not today. Progress. Their fingers brushed. A moment so small it might have gone unnoticed. But not by Theo. Never by Theo. Outside, something rumbled. A tremor through the roots. The hum of an approaching ship, maybe. Or something worse. We might not have much time, Theo said. If it's your people, they might shoot first. If it's mine, they might do the same. Then we stay together. Until one of us gets disintegrated. Preferably neither. He smiled. I like that plan. Rizzle looked toward the door. The jungle swayed as wind began to pick up. The console beeped again, response pending. We wait, she said. And while we wait, you tell me something real. What, like a confession? Something true. He thought for a moment. Then. I used to believe in fate. Then I joined the military and started believing in chaos. But sometimes, like now, I think maybe the two aren't so different. Chaos feels like home to me, distant. Theo leaned back against the wall and sighed. Setting, jungle clearing outside the comms outpost. Characters, Theo Marin, Rizzle, Captain Bryn, human, Commander Viren, Rizzle's mother. The sky cracked open like a wound as the first ship descended. It wasn't graceful. Nothing about military extraction vessels ever was. They tore through atmosphere like they owned the world, and this one bled static and heat, stirring the jungle canopy into a frenzy. Theo shielded his eyes as the dropship angled downward, thrusters scorching the moss below into ash. Incoming, he muttered. Rizzle stood beside him, leaning slightly on her makeshift cane. Her shoulders were squared, her jaw set like stone. The air around them thickened with tension. That's not one of mine, she said. Human craft. 9th Division, probably. They will not trust me. They barely trust me. He checked his pistol out of habit, knowing full well it wouldn't help much if things went sideways. The console behind them pinged, second contact inbound. Not human. And now yours, Theo said. Perfect. Great timing. Should we roll out a welcome mat or start building a foxhole? Rizzle didn't respond. She stared into the distance as the second dropship pierced the canopy. It moved more silently than the human craft, but with the same aggressive intent. A spear of black and violet steel, etched in golden script. Family, she whispered. That doesn't sound promising. They will come for me. Not to rescue. To judge. Theo turned to her, his voice low. We can run. No, she said. We face them. Together. In that clearing surrounded by ancient stone and hungry trees, they stood side by side as the two ships landed. From the human vessel, soldiers poured out in standard-issue armor, visors down, rifles up. Captain Bryn stepped forward, his face red with heat and suspicion. Theo recognized him from field briefings, by the book, short on patience, long on consequences. Marin, he shouted. What the hell is this? Theo raised his hands. Unexpected diplomacy, sir. Bryn looked at Rizzle. His eyes narrowed. Is that an enemy combatant? She saved my life, Theo lied, partly. I saved hers, definitely. We're working on a ceasefire. Under whose orders? Mine. Before Bryn could respond, a pulse of sound rolled through the clearing. The alien ship's ramp extended like a tongue. Out stepped a column of figures in shimmering armor, moving with unity and menace. At their head was a tall, regal woman whose presence shifted the air itself. Commander Viren, Rizzle said, her voice barely above a breath. Theo's head snapped toward her. That's your mother. Commander Viren strode forward until she stood mere feet from them. Her gaze flicked to Theo with calculated disdain, then locked onto Rizzle. You disobeyed orders. Failed your mission. Compromised security. I survived, Rizzle said. Survival is not the same as victory. I chose mercy. Viren's eyes were cold. Weakness. Human, Bryn barked. Is this alien a prisoner or an asset? Theo looked between them all, rifles ready, tempers sharp, the clearing taut with the potential for disaster. She's a person, he said. And I won't let either of you treat her like anything less. Silence fell. You overstep, Bryn warned. Probably. But I'm right. And you know it. Viren's hand moved to her sidearm. Rizzle didn't flinch. Neither did Theo. You would defend him, Viren said. Yes. Why? Because he did what you wouldn't. He saw me broken and chose kindness. Not conquest. Not advantage. Just kindness. Bryn sighed. This isn't going to look good in a report. You want a clean war story, Captain? Go write fiction. This is real. And real is messy. Both commanders exchanged glances. Something silent passed between them. You are not my daughter anymore, Viren said. Then I will become someone else. Theo reached out. Rizzle took his hand. Then we go together, he said. You'll never be safe, Viren said. We never were, Theo answered. Behind them, the jungle watched. The signal beacon blinked red. Danger imminent. Choice required. Stand down, Bryn said to his troops. We're leaving. And we're taking both of them. What? Theo blinked. Wait, both? You think I'm letting you wander off with a hostile asset unsupervised? She's coming. You're responsible. Congratulations. You've just adopted an international incident. Viren turned away without another word. Her soldiers followed. She didn't look back. Rizzle exhaled. It sounded like release. Or loss. Theo squeezed her hand. Ready to be debriefed by 3 departments, interrogated by 2, and secretly admired by 1 low-ranking supply officer. I have no idea what that means. Setting: Human Recovery Cruiser, Halcyon Shade, Medbay and Observation Deck orbiting Jungle Planet. Time: 2 days after the confrontation. Characters: Theo Marin, Rizzle, various background human personnel. Theo didn't dream of war that night. For the first time in months, maybe years, he slept without flashes of plasma or screams threading through the dark. When he woke, the medbay lights were set to dawn mimic, warm and soft. It almost felt like a hotel room, if hotels came with biometric locks and 3 layers of quarantine protocol. His body ached in the familiar way of post-mission strain. But it was the quiet that unnerved him. No jungle sounds. No distant gunfire. Just the gentle thrum of ship systems and the rhythmic beep of his own vitals. Across the room, separated by a transparent stasis curtain, Rizzle lay still. Her eyes were open. You stare like a human who thinks he's subtle, she said without looking at him. I'm subtle in very small, specific situations. Like blinking. Or pretending to listen during mission briefings. Her mouth curved slightly. Almost a smile. You're healing, he said, sitting up slowly. Better facilities. Actual medicine. Fewer venomous plants. Welcome to the perks of not dying in a jungle. Rizzle turned her head, looking at him fully. They haven't interrogated me yet. That's because they're still trying to figure out what to call you. Enemy. Asset. Traitor. Theo's friend, he said. She blinked. Something unreadable passed through her gaze. Bold. You're welcome. Someone buzzed the door, and Theo expected a security officer. Instead, it was a medic, followed by a nervous-looking diplomatic officer in a crisp navy jacket. She held a data pad like it might bite her. Field Medic Theo Marin. Depends who's asking. Specialist Adrian Sarah. I've been assigned as your intermediary. That sounds ominous. You and your companion have sparked considerable interest. We do that. She handed him the pad. This outlines your temporary reassignment. Until command decides your status, you're to remain aboard the Halcyon Shade. She may remain as well, under your direct supervision. So I'm her babysitter. Her sponsor. Semantics. Survival politics, Sarah replied. No one wants to escalate this. Your gesture in the field de-escalated what could have been a diplomatic catastrophe. I was just trying not to get anyone killed. Exactly. She left after a few more bureaucratic pleasantries, and Theo leaned back, letting the curtain slide open. Well, he said, you're stuck with me. I was already stuck with you. True. But now it's official. She didn't protest. By evening, they stood together on the observation deck. The jungle world orbited below them, clouds curling over emerald continents. Theo leaned against the railing, hands clasped, while Rizzle stood still as a statue beside him. You're quiet, he said. I am watching. Regretting? No. He looked at her sideways. Do you miss it? Your people. Your command. I miss certainty. Don't we all? They stood like that for a long time. Eventually, she spoke. I do not know who I am now. You're someone who survived. Someone who changed. That's enough for today. And tomorrow? We figure it out. Together. Her gaze found his, and for once, she didn't look away. You still scare me, she said. I have that effect. Not because of what you are. But because of what you make me feel. His breath caught. Same. I do not understand it. Welcome to the club. We have t-shirts. She looked down at his hand resting on the rail. Slowly, deliberately, she placed hers over it. Then let us be confused. Together. In the days that followed, Rizzle remained on the halcyon shade. Her presence made most of the crew nervous. Whispers followed her in the halls. But no one challenged her, not with Theo beside her, always a step behind, a step ahead, wherever she needed him to be. He taught her to play cards. She taught him to read 3 of her language's glyphs. He cooked once using rations and spices smuggled from the mess, and she declared it edible with a solemn nod. They laughed more than they should have. And when the diplomats arrived, asking questions about strategy and defectors and what came next, Rizzle gave them very little. I am not a pawn, she told one ambassador. And I am not yours. When asked why she stayed with Theo, she said, because he did not ask me to change. Only to survive. On the 7th day, Theo was called to the bridge. The view was sharper here, less tinted. More raw. She's leaving, the captain said. We've been ordered to let her go if she chooses. And if she doesn't? Then we find a place for her. Off the record. Thank you. Don't thank me yet. She hasn't decided. Theo found her in the arboretum, hands trailing across the leaves of an alien tree. The light made her skin glow. You're going, he said. No. He froze. You're staying. If you'll have me. Rizzle. She stepped close. I do not belong anywhere anymore. Except near you. He reached up, brushed his fingers lightly against her cheek. Then stay near me. She kissed him. It was awkward. Unfamiliar. Real. When they pulled apart, she whispered, your people will not understand. Then they'll learn. And yours? They already knew, setting, new human-alien cooperative base, frontier station orbiting neutral territory. Time, several weeks later. Characters, Theo Marin, Rizzle, Ambassador Novin, Liaison Mile, background personnel. The station wasn't pretty. But Theo had never cared much for pretty. What he cared about was that it worked. Metal corridors that didn't echo gunfire. Doors that opened when they should. Oxygen levels that stayed stable. And a cafeteria that, if not exactly culinary, at least didn't try to murder anyone's stomach lining. Rizzle had taken to the place with a quiet intensity. Not quite ownership, but something close. She walked the halls like someone still measuring the gravity of every moment, weighing it against everything she had once been. She didn't speak much the first few days. Neither did he. They didn't need to. Not after what they'd seen, what they'd chosen. What they were building now. This room used to be a weapons bay, Theo said, standing in a former cargo hangar repurposed into a shared tactical hull. Now it's a library, apparently. Rizzle nodded, running her fingers over the edge of a shelf. Strange use of space. Books are weapons, depending on who's reading. Humans say that a lot. We also say, sorry, when we mean, watch out. I have noticed. They smiled. Not big smiles. Not the kind you give strangers. The kind you share with someone who has seen you covered in blood and still offered you water. The station had no official designation. It was a political experiment, a temporary neutral zone in orbit over a shattered moon. Humans and her people had both lost too much here. Maybe that was why it had been chosen. A place where neither side could pretend to hold the moral high ground. Ambassador Novin called it, a conversation built from ash. Rizzle called it unfinished. How long before someone tries to take it, she asked one morning, sipping something the humans called coffee. It tasted like warm despair. Depends on how well we keep the lights on, Theo replied. And if we fail? We don't. He said it with the same certainty he used to splint a shattered limb or cauterize a wound. Not blind optimism. Just simple refusal to let it fall apart. A week into their assignment, they received a visitor. Liaison Mile was from Rizzle's world. Young, sharp, diplomatic to a fault. He bowed low when he saw her. Scout Rizzle. Not Scout anymore. Still a symbol. Mile had brought an offer, return. Not to chains, but to recognition. A seat on a neutral council. Her voice heard as one of the first bridges between worlds. And the condition? Rizzle asked. Sever all ties to him. She didn't even glance at Theo. Her voice stayed even. No. Mile blinked. You would refuse a chance to shape history. I am shaping it now. Here. With him. Mile left within the hour. No threats. No promises. Just silence. Theo found her in the old observation wing that night. You didn't even hesitate. I did. Before. Not now. What changed? I stopped waiting for permission to be myself. And who are you now? Someone who chooses. Someone who stays. He reached out. Not to comfort. Just to be there. I won't leave either. I know. By the end of the second month, the station had developed its own rhythm. Humans and aliens ran drills side by side. Meals were shared. Stories traded. No one talked about peace treaties or armistices. Those were too big, too fragile. But people nodded in hallways. And when Rizzle's hand brushed Theo's at the supply console, no one stared. We're not the ending of a war, he told her. We're the start of something else. Then let's keep building it.